Whilst we go through the webinar, we want to hear from you. So please share your answers to the questions. And also, if you have any other questions, you can share those on Zoom through the chat box. Unfortunately, we don't have time today for a Q&A, but we will be considering your questions in two ways as we build out and refine the content for the future webinar sessions, as well as we'll be creating a follow-up blog from this session where we share anonymously your answers and try to answer any of the questions that you may have shared with us. For future sessions, blogs, and other materials, please visit our microsite, which is on capco.com/intelligence/optimize. We have shared all the materials there. We will refer to some more materials throughout the session. So they will all be collated there for your ease of reference, and we'll share the link again in the thank you email we'll share with you. So now let me hand over to Edwin, who will tell you more about the Capco APAC industry landscape with process automation.
Thank you very much, Jenny. So a very good intro. So and welcome everyone, especially for those in Hong Kong and Singapore. Basically, this is quite late in the day. So thank you very much for joining. So as Jenny introduced, so myself, I have worked in the data industry for more than 25 years, and I lead the data practice for Capco in Asia Pacific. Why I specifically mentioned about this 25 years is that I still remember when around 15 years ago when I was working in a bank. So I'm asked to use data analytics to help on process improvement. So at the time, I still remember basically it's still from a technology perspective, it's mostly business process management platform, so BPM. But data analytics, as most of it will be kind of like a supplementary tools, I would say. So basically it's just to either use as an afterthought to just show all the KPIs, how we actually manage the operations, or in some cases that we use it to predict if there's some bottlenecks is going to happen. So in the bank that I was working at, so we are talking about to measure or to predict if there's bottlenecks exist in one of the service centers. So during the currency cutoff, that is like at 4 p.m. So because if it pass and without doing all the works, then there will be a penalties incurred. So, but obviously, I mean, in the last, I think 5 to 10 years, that the whole landscape changed. So with all this automation tools like RPA, robotic process automation, as well as some of the data automation tools that we'll be showing in the second half, as well as just like more advanced technology like artificial intelligence. So right now we can even pick handwrite things from a documents. So previously this job definitely needs to be done by human beings. So but right now basically there are technologies out there who can also automate. So I think the question right now becomes not if technology can be used to improve operation, but the question is like what to use and how to use it, when to use what. I mean, so I think that's basically the ideas on how we want to share our viewpoint. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So as Jenny mentioned at the start, basically, this is kind of like our viewpoint in a nutshell. So how any company should embark or should evolve their operation optimization journey. So if you have not started using any automation tools, then in a way, congratulations, because you will find that there would be quite a few automation platform in the markets that you can buy not so expensively, but you can also train people, and then basically after they get trained, and then they can basically do some automation. So I think by using all these automation tools is quite straightforward in terms of ROI sometimes, because you just need to basically analyze the whole process. There are different steps, just like if there are 10 steps, perhaps 7 steps can be automated using this automation platform. Then you can calculate the ROI quite straight away. So obviously, especially if the people are working in higher cost center. So, but if the back-end people, back-end office people are already in low-cost center, then obviously we need to take another look. But this is really when most companies will start their automation journeys. So just acquire some automation platform in the markets, learn the platform, and then even build up a COE around those automation platform and start the automation journey. But if you, for those of you who have started, then you might observe that that's also we observe is that by using this, first of all, it's very much dependent on one or two platforms. So it's like, okay, if I use up all the use cases, those are all that we can automate, then what's next? And another thing is like how to justify I should do it first, I should make the investment in this department versus I should do the investment in another department. So I mean, from that stage, what we suggest is that we should basically look at it from a more holistic enterprise perspective. So in a way, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 in this slide is kind of like work together. So the thinking behind it is that you should think about the automation, or optimization program from a holistic and enterprise manner. So what we say is that, okay, and then because first of all, you might need to buy some new technologies, and to buy technologies just for one use case usually do not justify, because the reason being we have seen in the past that if we need to buy, like, okay, I need to invest on this AI, I need to invest on this orchestration, but for one use case, and because some of the times this use case will fail after experimentation. So then it's really hard to justify to basically just do it and look at it from a holistic, from a silo use case by use case perspective. And then after you fail for a few times, then you might just give it up. So that's the thoughts behind stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. So basically you need to set up a program, you need to set up something to look at it from a holistic manner. But the question becomes, okay, so if I want to look at it from a holistic manner, so what are the processes that I should start improving first? So that's what we propose in stage 2. You should, do a baselining of all, if not most, of the processes in the company by using platform like process mining. So process mining is like a non-intrusive technology where you just read the logs in the systems. So that basically, and you can put together a very nice dashboard for you to look at the performance of each processes. And even for a standard process, what are the alternatives paths that could go through for this single process, or you can basically compare the same process across different countries that is deployed. So then that will also give you a baseline, as well as it could give you and tell you after you set it up once, then basically, what's the improvement will be after you adopt different improvement factors into it. So, but it also, as a third, benefits is that it will give you a pipeline or basically a community or basically a group of use cases that can be improved, that can bring into, in a way, the first stage. So in the first stage, what we propose as one of the main exercise is to set up a center of excellence. So a group of people who would govern and help to manage this, enterprise optimization program, centrally. So there's few functions of this COE. So first of all is that this needs to, set up the core technology stack that is applicable for the use cases for the particular company. So for example, and this goes, in a way, goes back to the process mining thing. When we basically get these use cases that should be improved, then after looking at it, then for company A, they might be looking at, okay, I need document AI for this use cases. But for another company, it might just need an RPA, so for instance. So basically, this group should determine what is the technology stack. So is there orchestration layer that is required, to orchestrate between different technologies as well as the processes. So I think that's the first function. The second function is basically to set up a use case justification framework. So there are so many processes across different departments, and then why should I do this first use case first, and then why not do the second use case? So basically, there needs to be kind of like a business value assessor. So in the framework, they determine the ROI of each use case. Then basically a heat map will nicely draw up and say, okay, this is the use cases with the lowest ROI and potentially with the biggest benefits. Then those obviously should be the first candidate to fall into the improvement agenda. So, and lastly, it should also combine with the more traditional Lean Six Sigma process people. So this group should help to manage and help to drive the whole, optimization program from the company perspective. So, so if you already have this, then congratulations, you're really, quite ahead of the pack. But what we have observed and what I have seen in market, there's also some company that think, okay, this is not enough. I want to make this like a culture for the whole company. So this will then enter the fourth stage. So if you remember, for those of you who have experienced, like when visualization platform, business intelligence platform first come into the market like 10, 15 years ago. So the slogan there is that, okay, let's put data at the fingertips of the end users. But for in stage 4, what these companies believe is that let's put automation platform at the fingertips of my operation people. So it's kind of like instilling a new culture that, everyone in the operation team can learn, and basically they can do some experimentation of their own. And basically, then they will be the one who can basically, in another way, give inputs to the COE. So if, for example, imagine if your operations staff have a RPA to use, then they can just do some trial and error to basically to see if that actually works. And because they are the people who are doing the processes, then most of the time they will know the process better. So then it's kind of like changing the culture as well as to fully bringing up the skill sets of the operation team, and then in a way there will be new career paths that ties into to this change in the whole operations. So no matter where you are, we have some opinion on where you should go from where you are. But before that, just like Jenny said, so we would be having polling questions all along, and this would be a good time for us to again pull up the polling questions to understand where you are at the moment. So yeah, this is again a multiple choice question, but the point is that we will put together all the results of these pollings at the end into a blogs and documents where you will find in our microsite. Later. So we will collect all this information. So first of all, you will know, where at least for those people who joined today, you know basically the statistics from the people who joined the webinar today. Okay, thank you. So let's close the poll and then we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So so this is our view on how to advance from no matter where you are. So I think it's really two messages. The first message is that beside RPA, there are still other automation platforms in the market, just like the data automation platform that we'll be showing in the second half of this webinar. So just pick all these low-hanging fruits, because usually those are the easier one to get, and then basically it's easier to justify the ROI. So that's the first comment. The second comment is really to think about this optimization program from a holistic enterprise perspective. And if you start doing that, then you will quickly understand that, okay, you need to build kind of like a center of excellence, a group of people who is expertise in different streams. And then you will also find out that you need to establish a technology stack for your company very soon, because that's what I said. It's not like a one size fits all. So I can put in this 3 technologies in your company, but not for another company. So it's really based on the actual requirement as well as the situation. So, and build a use case justification framework quickly, so that basically there will not be so many arguments. And the points that I've not put here is really think about it. Not from a use case by use case perspective, because if you look at it from a use case perspective, some of the use cases might not fare quite well. But if you look at it as a whole, so if I look at the ROI for like in 3 quarters or basically in 6 months, then sometimes it will release the pressure of, okay, I need to be successful at every use case, which might not be possible, especially when we start to bring in technology like artificial intelligence. So this is our brief viewpoint on no matter where you are, how you should go. So then I will basically pass to a real expert in field. So for Jenny to talk to him next. Thank you.
Phil, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. So
thanks, Jenny.
Firstly, I'd just like to understand from you, I know that you started your operations modernization journey quite a few years back. So could you share with us what were some of the key drivers at the time?
Yeah, so look, this has been a continuous journey for a number of years now. I first became involved around 5 years ago when we started to make a conscious effort to drive efficiencies across our international markets in Asia. So these markets make up 11 of the 19 Asia markets where HSBC have presence. And we realized that across those 11 markets, we had over 1,200 key manual processes, right? So that's quite a lot. And each process was time consuming, it was prone to manual error, and it was the cause of customer pain points as well. So we knew that as we continued to scale and drive business growth, we needed to ensure that our servicing capability kept up with demand, right? So we also wanted to keep cost to serve down. So the more we could streamline and digitize our processes, the lower the ongoing cost to serve. And then the more that we digitize the process, the less friction as well from a customer perspective. So kind of increasing customer satisfaction and improving delivery time. I think one of the last drivers would be risk reduction as well. Given the manual nature of those processes, the threat or the threat of the miskeying error was present. So part of the journey was around revisiting some key controls or high risk areas to see how they could be addressed through optimization and automation.
I think a lot of financial services firms are facing the same drivers as you. I'm curious to know, what were some of the early successes that you had?
Yep. So through this work, we started small. We didn't try to completely re-engineer our end-to-end credit processes or anything like that. We actually asked the COOs in 2 or 3 of our markets whether they could prioritize the manual processes where they felt there was opportunity to improve. And then we focused on 2 or 3 of those processes. The early successes we had involved those processes where we're able to reduce end-to-end turnaround time of a process. So for example, through the reduction of manual steps in the process. I'd say that the early successes that we had were very tactical in nature, largely focused on the low-hanging fruit. So changes that we could make with very little technology investment, for example, reducing the number of steps in a process or providing a checklist to ensure all inputs to a process were captured up front, this therefore reducing rework, or through building very simple macros to automate some of the data crunching. I think through these tactical changes, I think we proved that there was an opportunity to reduce time to serve and cost to serve. And we also reduced some of the risk through the processes as well, through the improved controls and through less physical touch points. I think for me, it's really important to measure the benefits as well of the changes we made. So we tried to build out some case studies to show the before and after impacts, clearly demonstrate what we had done and how that had improved our operations. I think that was something that was really important at senior management level to allow us to gain further investment and appetite.
Yeah, I think definitely getting the buy-in and investment, it's important to quantify the successes. So I'm just curious to understand, what were some of the measurements that you used to estimate and track the benefits?
Yep. So quite simple stuff. The key measurement points largely around cost, time, and quality. So these are metrics that would typically be captured across an operations shop anyway. But I think being able to compare the before and after measurements just allowed the benefits to be estimated and tracked. For the more complex processes, we did look at like the number of handoff points, try to capture time and motion of a transaction through that process. Risk, I would say, is a little bit more complex to quantify, but we looked into areas where perhaps in the past there'd been operational incidents and then kind of ascertained how this could be mitigated or avoided through the changes that were being proposed to a process. I think the key point for me around measurement is that it should never be one-dimensional. I don't just focus on cost, because there's a lot of other opportunity than just using operations optimization or automation as a cost play. So I think just look at a measurement from a broad perspective is probably best.
Sounds great. I'm sure our guests are interested to know, what are some of the use cases you found to have the greatest benefits?
Yeah, I think those use cases that eliminate paper typically have the biggest impact. I think it's great for our employees because things can be managed digitally. It's great for our customers because nowadays they can digitally sign and manage documents. It's also great for the environment, printing less paper, emitting less carbon, and so forth. Provides a better audit trail, reduces storage costs, etc., etc. The other use cases that lead to better customer satisfaction, that they go down well, reducing handoffs back and forth between operations, our frontline staff and clients also have huge benefits. When I meet with clients, the biggest friction that they highlight is around this area, the number of handoffs. So when we do reduce that back and forth, we really see an uplift in customer satisfaction. So I'd say if you're struggling to find the right use cases, speak to your customers or speak to your staff. I think crowdsource the pain points and get the right people involved to address them.
I think in the vein of what you mentioned about digitization, obviously an important part of any successful use case selection is appropriate tool selection. So how have you approached tool selection?
Okay, yeah, I think the key point for me around tool selection is that there isn't really a one-size-fits-all tool that will solve all the business challenges and all the use cases. So we've built up a catalog of tools, right? So we've classified each tool by its use case, provided examples of the benefits and the limitations of each tool as well. So this really helps to identify the right tool for the job based upon the task at hand. For example, a robotics process automation tool might help to automate a highly repetitive process, but if the process is more complex, various touch points, and you need a lot of skilled knowledge workers involved, then a workflow type tool would be best to implement instead. I think the key is there's lots and lots of great tools out there. I think it's just about selecting the right tool for the task.
Sounds good. Could you give the participants advice on how to get started if they're at the beginning of their operations optimization journey? So anything you do differently if you started again?
Okay, so start of the journey, I think start small, prove the value and build from there. I think it also helps to focus on the business problem you're trying to solve. So for example, if you know that strategically you're going to grow a particular business line or a particular market segment, then make sure you match your servicing capability to the strategic targets of the business, right? So if, for example, we have aspirations to double the size of a business, I think perform a very clear review on how the operations and servicing processes will be able to scale to support that growth. So what's the current capacity and capability of the operations shop? How would it cope with the increased demand and volume? And then performing that kind of review will allow you to highlight the key hotspots or areas of concerns that then can then be addressed through automation and operations optimization. In terms of what I would do differently if starting today, I'd probably apply a bit more rigor to some of the pilot processes that we looked at. And whether estimated benefits could actually be realized. So a lot more focus on benefits realization. For some of the processes we started to look at, after a bit more review, it was deemed that there was additional complexity or regulatory requirements that meant that the process couldn't be optimized or automated as much as we thought it could be upfront. So I think upfront planning and being very clear on what processes offer the biggest opportunity is important. Also ensure it's not a siloed exercise. So get business lines, get supporting functions like compliance, risk, and legal involved in the conversations as well. Their priorities, focus, viewpoints might be different than the priorities of operations, but I think it's important to get a balanced view. And it also makes it easier to gain support and engagement going forward as well.
For sure. And to ensure our guests are prepared, can you share what challenges you faced and how you tackled those?
Yeah, I think building on what I just mentioned around the importance of not operating in silos, I think that was a big challenge early on. And a lesson learned is that perhaps we could have engaged business lines and other stakeholders better. We tackled that by being transparent, so seeking feedback, bringing them along on the journeys type thing. Where we've looked at optimizing a process, we tried to focus on the end-to-end rather than just looking at one part of the process that's managed through the operations shop. So this kind of helps with full focus and benefits realization as well, because often, you know, operations team get given an input and they rely on high quality inputs. So not fixing the root cause of quality at source, you know, can cause downstream issues and reduce the benefits that can be realized as well. The other challenge would be on prioritization. I mentioned right at the beginning, we identified 1,200 key manual processes. It's really important to deep dive and understand where the biggest opportunity is. But obviously this takes a lot of time and resource. So as those processes were across 11 of our markets, we try to look for commonalities and where it would be feasible to lift and shift improvements in one market across to another one, you know, because where this is feasible, kind of increased our coverage and would reduce the total effort to optimize processes. So I think, you know, looking for commonalities is a good one as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Lastly, I'd like to ask you about building capability, because obviously that's a critical part of any successful automation journey. So can you tell us, what did you initially do from a capability building perspective to build those foundational capabilities, whilst keeping in mind the need to build for the future? And how has that evolved over time, looking at where you are today and what's coming next?
Yep. So while we did start with a rather tactical approach, there's always cognizant to ensure that any change or solution put in place is sustainable. So meaning it won't fall over due to natural attrition as people move on to new roles, or the process or the automation won't break because the volume increase is larger than what was anticipated. So scalability has to be considered and built into any kind of operational enhancement. The past few years has also seen increasing pressure on capability, particularly in the digital space. You know, COVID-19 pandemic impacted us all, but had a huge impact on customer expectations as well. Huge acceleration to digital channels. So this has put additional pressure on operations just to ensure that servicing aspects are as digital as possible, removing paper, removing manual touch points. I think this acceleration is probably a blessing for anybody that's looking to get buy-in to modernize their processes, because we've all witnessed this shift to digital, and I don't think anybody wants to get left behind. I think as we've evolved, we've put a huge focus on future skills and giving our people access to the knowledge and tools to deliver against our strategic goals. I often tell my operations team that, you know, the skills that will be required to be successful in 5 years' time will likely be very, very different than the skills required today. And as leaders, it's our responsibility to upskill our people, develop our talent, and ensure that they're equipped for whatever the future challenges of tomorrow. But so that's very important. And I think earlier this year, the Financial Services Skills Commission, which is an independent think tank in the United Kingdom, they issued a report on the skills for the future of financial services, and the skills that they highlighted weren't, you know, credit or risk management. They're largely technical skills, right? So they're things like digital literacy, data analytics, software development, creative thinking, stuff like that. So this really demonstrates the shift that we're on, I think, in banking, financial services, and I think that will only help companies that want to embark on a journey to modernize their operations, because, you know, that's the way we're moving, and I think everybody's sort of aware of that. So yeah, use that as a leverage to get buy-in as well.
Thank you so much, Phil, and thanks for sharing so openly all of your insights and lessons learned. I really think that our audience will have benefited from your views today.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Thanks. So I'll now pass on to Gabrielle, who will talk about intelligent automation, some of the tooling and platforms.
Thank you, Jenny, and hi, everyone. I think we touched base on a few very important points already, and I'm very happy to be presenting after such quality presentations as well. We mentioned a few things. Actually, Phil raised a very important point on relevant use cases, and we mentioned paper-based use cases and documentation-based use cases, and I'll be presenting two that relate to that using data automation platforms. Just want to focus right now on what is intelligent automation. We've got a dedicated team in Capco that deals with IA, and we embed different functionalities and tools into it. We've got data analytics, we've got RPA capabilities, we've got cognitive AI, so NLP, OCR, we mentioned that before. And all of this is part of the capability. We have a platform and tool agnostic we work with many different vendors to provide clients with the best platform and the best tool for their use case. And I think this is very important to echo. We range from RPA, which can deliver quick scalable solutions, to complex AI algorithms, and also data automation platforms. We work a lot with lately with data automation platforms as well. And doing that by combining expertise in these different tools and platforms and allowing clients to access all of them, we can really deliver automation solutions that are tailored to the client infrastructure and the client need. We're going to pull up now a question for you to answer and give you around 30 seconds for it to see which ones you're familiar with or where is your focus. And so we introduced already data automation. We mentioned data automation platforms. I think this links back to the title of this webinar and the reason why we're all here. We're trying to democratize innovation. We're trying to upskill staff and transform staff into citizens, data scientists, where everybody can participate in the innovation journey of a business and feel empowered to be part of the change, and also upskill and look for new opportunities as well within the company for new roles. So there's a very important difference here between RPA and data automation. I think it all comes down to prerequisite skills that RPA needs as opposed to data automation. RPA requires coding, whereas data automation is branded as no code, low code. There will be a slight need for coding, but it's not as heavy as RPA. And this is probably why, from an industry trend perspective, we see many more clients resorting to data automation platform. So what can we do with such platforms? You see some names on the screen. I think XCEPTOR and Alteryx are the two most important examples that we can provide. Whereby UiPath and Blue Prism are example of RPA platforms and tools. So what we can do with data automation is actually really fascinating. So first of all, we can extract and connect to many different data sets and replicate them into a one-stop shop solution. So we can collate all data, manipulate the data, and also generate an output when it's required. And this would normally involve different teams. Each team would have to download the specific data set and then rebuild it, analyze it. We can do all of this using just one platform, which is really helpful. Such platforms, and we'll be focusing on XCEPTOR for this presentation. They also enable for reporting and MI and audit trails, which are very important when we're trying to showcase what we have been doing so far with a specific use case. And especially they require little to no coding, and they can be configured by non-technical users. And I think in this sense, these data automation platforms, they are really allowing for democratizing of staff, because everybody can learn those. You don't need to have any previous technical background, which is my case. I think also I wanted to focus the attention on what we said before, which is to actually create center of excellence within the business, and creating teams of people who can participate in the innovation journey. This is super important and crucial, because changes oftentimes come from people at the bottom of the chain, people who are exposed to operations, and people who have to deal with manual repetitive tasks, as Phil was saying before. So effectively, when we empower these people to be part of the journey, the automation steps taken by the business would be much faster and much more efficient. Can we please run the question on the screen? So we mentioned here a few different tools and platforms, and what we ask is to know which ones are you using currently. My personal expertise is XCEPTOR, because this is what we've been using to build some of the prototypes that we'll share on screen. let's now talk about use cases. Why, although we've been saying before it's important, we just want to show you an example of scalable, replicable use case that we built using data automation, and in this case, XCEPTOR. This is a use case that resonates very well with me because I was the person to actually manually draft all the documentation for my company, and this was a very manual, repetitive, and prone to risk exercise that we had to deal with every single day. It involved many different teams to deliver client-facing documentation in credit. And what we did was basically we implemented an XCEPTOR flow, which drastically cut down time, delivery to market time, but also reduced risk, 80% error rate reduction, and drafting time reduction by 90%. I think these are very important numbers to look at. We went from basically 2 hours drafting time to 45 seconds for XCEPTOR to generate a final document that's ready to be sent to clients. And this is an example of what Phil said before. So we started from a specific use case, maybe a small use case, to then scale this up and cover future use cases, or expand this to other line of businesses and type of contracts. If we move to the next slide, we can show how this use case was later replicated and scaled up to cover a larger book of work. We say there the need for automated document processing. We developed this prototype here at Capco, and we embedded the functionality of the use case, which was on the previous slide. And we embedded this into a much wider use case, which aims to solve issues that banks have following the LIBOR scandal. And we know that LIBOR is going to be decommissioned. So all of these financial institutions will have to redocument, repaper thousands of facilities. So we asked ourselves, how could we help our clients to do this? And we believe that no-code, low-code was the solution to it. The challenges are similar to the use case for loan automation, especially the fact that redocument and repaper all of these facilities will put a very high pressure on FTEs for the bank. And so we partnered with XCEPTOR to actually design this prototype that covers the whole flow. So it's an end-to-end flow that covers the data input stage where we identify all of the clients that are impacted, all the way up to providing clients with a new loan agreement or an amendment to the loan agreements that they already have. There are several benefits, and I think these ones are very important to talk about. Business case and scalability, this links back to what Phil and Edwin were saying before. So we try to implement solutions that are scalable and replicable and can be leveraged for future automation use cases. The platform in this instance offers also a full audited process documentation screen that allows for a relationship manager to actually track everything that's been discussed with their clients and all the stages of the redocumentation process. We'll be sharing at the end of the webinar the links to the 2 white papers and video content that we wrote on this as part of Capco Thought Leadership. There's also, can we put up please the question for this slide? This is to see if you've already worked on similar use cases, or if this resonates with some of the use cases that you might be looking at in your automation journey. So here we can see the flow of this end-to-end solution that we designed as a prototype. And you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a data input stage where we do exactly what we were saying before. We use data automation platforms to actually collate and extract all the relevant data. And then once this is done, XCEPTOR can deal with the whole flow that you see in the middle of the screen, including scanning through lists of facilities, OCR, the document, the contracts that we need to amend. This is done by plugging into a third-party provider that they are compatible with. Then we can use the data and cleanse it and generate also an amended document that's then sent to the client and which has the new screen rate that we need to add. And in doing so, we can use XCEPTOR as a one-stop shop solution to, take care of the whole flow. Normally, this would obviously take and require several teams to work on the same, several email exchanges, and we can do all of it using one single platform, which makes things obviously a lot easier and reduces time and costs and allows for audit as well. At the end of the process, we can then send, that data output phase, we can send the document to the ops team for rebooking and cascade it down to the relevant teams for the same. This use case team will now give you a demo. So thank you very much all, and I'll hand over to Tim now.
So thanks very much for joining today. So we've heard from Phil about the importance of using the right tool for the right solution. That's what I'm going to take you through here. So we're now going to show you how we can actually achieve this using easily configurable smart tools. And it's worth considering that this is a platform which can be used for a number of use cases, so that the business context and the problem we're solving for here is IBOR repapering, but again, it's more about the technology and the capability that you're building to then reuse over and over again. So that bear in mind that's the kind of key here when we sort of walk through this. So there's 4 key elements that I'm going to take you through and then describe the business benefits of. So first of all, in the LIBOR repapering domain, if any of you have been involved in them programs, it's particularly the large scale legal remediation of documents. Teams of caseworkers usually are employed to kind of step through what needs to happen from a customer perspective, whether their loans need to be rebooked, whether their loans need to be amended, stepping through all of those decisions one by one with people like relationship managers and clients. So I'm going to show you first of all how we've gone about this end to end. So first of all, the loan discovery and OCR, we'll see the capability of the platform in extracting information from a document and providing that to the case manager. We'll then see a number of interactions between the case manager, the relationship manager, and the client, which will then lead to the decision on whether or not amendment document needs to be generated, and we'll show the capture of that. And then, as Gabby said, we want this to be a one-stop shop. So we've also built the ability to then provide the metadata to then actually rebook this loan or trade in whatever relevant primary trading system you're using. So we'll show you that. And then finally, we'll show you the tracking and how we sort of pull this together and what we actually see from an audit perspective, which is very key so that it's all in one place. So I'll just share my screen now and we can take a look at that. Excellent. Okay, so let me just describe what we're looking at here. So what I've done is, this is the XCEPTOR screens. What I've done is we've preloaded XCEPTOR. We're using dummy data, by the way, so don't be any concerned about customer data we're using. We've preloaded XCEPTOR with a 1000K loan bilateral file, which contains a whole load of loan data, and we've also dropped in a PDF file which has been OCR'd, and the OCR capability has tried to match the data points that we've predefined against a number of loans in the loan file. So I can see now, so imagine I'm a case manager, this is my work queue. So day to day, I deal with all these documents and I make decisions based on what needs to happen next for them. So I can see here, let's say this item here, I can see that there's some action to take here that on the data extraction. So I'm just going to have a look. So first of all, the data's been extracted. XCEPTOR's tried to match the PDF information against the loan data, and I can see, if I now have a look here, there's some actions to take here. So the matching hasn't occurred perfectly, and as a case manager, I now need to go in and make a correction to the match doc. There's some difference in what we've sort of predefined here. So what I can do is now I can drill into that and actually have a look at the data. So on the left, we've got the actual original document. On the right, we've got the data that we've extracted from that document and all the data points, and we can look at those very quickly. So I can very quickly see, in terms of data remediation, I can see that there's something here which we've got low confidence levels on. So this is our confidence level against each of the data points. So I can see here, there's something to take action on. So it looks like there's been some over extraction that's happened here, which which means that the OCR has actually just slightly over extracted one of the data fields. So what I can do is I can very simply just go in and correct any of these within the tool, and basically just ensure that any kind of data remediation steps are taken care of before we then proceed to the next stage. So let me just do that. Okay, so that's all been approved. So again, it's a very easy way to sort of see my data against my document. And then as a case manager, once I'm confident that I can actually, that I'm confident that I'm looking at the right data set for the right customer, I can then go back to my other screen, and then there's an engagement that starts with the actual relationship manager and the client. So as Gabby said earlier, I'm now happy, the document looks okay. I can start speaking to a relationship manager who would manage the client relationship and start putting all those interactions in here. So once we start talking to that relationship manager and we're confident on the data, we can then start deciding on what the next action is. So quite often there'll be a meeting with the relationship manager, and then what will happen is he will then decide to start speaking to the client about this particular loan, decide what action needs to be taken here. So once that interaction starts, what we would do then is we'd start moving the workflow on to say that a client decision needs to be made on this particular LIBOR loan. So whether or not that's an amendment or some other alternative, then that's the conversation we start having with the client. So under that, once that conversation starts to be had, we'll then log any kind of meetings we have with the client. And let's say in this example, we have a meeting and the client decides that they want to repay for this document and start negotiating amended terms. Then I would select that here, and that then starts off that particular workflow. So pretty much what we've decided is we're going to start renegotiate the legal negotiation with the client and start renegotiating the terms from a LIBOR agreement to an alternative reference rate, which could be SONIA or something like that. So you can see the business benefits. I've got the OCR capability. I've got all the interactions. What I can then also do is then go in and actually do the legal negotiation and the capture of those new terms within the system as well. So if we negotiate with the client and we decide to go for a SONIA rate and we start updating the terms, etc., we can capture all of those again within the same platform, providing that business benefit, providing that traceability. And then what I can actually do then is pretty much have so I've now negotiated my my new benchmark rate. I can then have a look at that document that's been generated and just see if I can find it within the document. So there's my SONIA rate. So the amended document can actually be generated within the platform, and you'll see full traceability of that. So now once I've negotiated that document and I've sent it out to the client, there's a few more internal things which we can do and show here. So like I said, we can actually there's quite often a step here to then be able that's required internally to, after you do the remediation, to then actually rebook this in whatever system you've originally scoped this from. So I can now basically, I'm stepping through this fairly quickly, I can now move to the trade rebooking step. So we've captured our data, we've got our amendment, we've now so basically I've now set this up so it sends me an email to generate the rebooking steps. So I can see here now, I've now got the metadata that I could pass to a system to allow me to then rebook that trade, which is a very powerful capability to have that sort of all in one place, and like Phil says, not to have a sort of a siloed approach. And then finally, I was going to show you the tracking. So in terms of our audit log, we've got this fully auditable change log here. All the actions that I've taken here are listed. So in one place, you can have all of this available, again, for auditors or internal audit. So you don't have to go to 3 or 4 systems, and that's very much where we've found the benefits with our own sort of client base. So that pretty much completes the demo. So I hope that's been clear on the benefits of what we're showing here. I'll now just pass over to Edwin for the final question and some concluding thoughts.
Thank you, team. Thank you very much. And so thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. So I think we're at the end of this webinar. So with that, let us pull out the last polling question, which is kind of like to get your feedback on which part you think is most useful during this webinar. So you might notice that we have more questions, I mean, in this webinar than what you normally expect. But one of the target is that we will collect this information, and then we'll basically put that, just like I said, into some statistics, and then we'll put into a blocks, and for which we will share with you. I mean, in the microsite itself. So in the microsite now, I mean, just like Jenny started, in the beginning, that we will be having like 4 webinars in this series. So this is the first of the 4th. And basically for all the information, when would that happen, as well as we already have free blogs already in that microsite, together with some videos and use case that Gabriel mentioned. So we'll be including the information of the microsite, as well as any other relevant information into a thank you email that we'll be sending out shortly after today. So again, thank you very much for your attendance, and especially great thanks to Phil, to our special guest today, so that basically he can give his professional view from his profession. So again, thank you very much. Hope this webinar, I mean, the content and basically all the sharing is useful to you. So please join us, and then check back to the microsite, and then please join us, in the second of this webinar series. Thank you very much. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.